The NFL draft is off and running. We take a look at the current season of F1 and it's playoff hockey time. All of that and more coming right up. It's the Water Cooler. Where else would you rather be? Good morning and welcome to the Water Cooler, your home for USC Sports Banter. I'm your host, Thomas Johnson, joined alongside Hayes Flanagan and MJ Newsom. The first round of the NFL Draft was last night. Let's get into it with Water Cooler talk and watch the first overall pick as it happened.
With the first pick in the 2025 NFL Draft, the Tennessee Titans select Cameron Ward, quarterback, Miami.
So the expected is now official, and Cam Ward comes out of the green room. His night was as quick as we thought it would be, and he is the first overall pick of the 2025 NFL Draft.
You just saw it. Cam Ward went number 1 overall. At the second spot, it was Travis Hunter after the Jacksonville Jaguars traded up, and the Giants took Abdul Carter at number 3. MJ Hayes, what were y'all's reaction to the first round?
It was a pretty civil first round. I mean, I think we did see some dynamite blow up with pick 2 with the Jacksonville Jaguars trading up to get their guy Travis Hunter, but then nothing really happened again until pick 21, and that was interesting. Of course, the Shedeur Sanders drama along with Jackson Dart. I think the Giants made a good pick with Jackson Dart. I'm excited for him to go. And then outside of that, I think there was only maybe 1 or 2 more trades. Jahad Campbell was picked at 31 by the Eagles, trading up 1 spot, but everything else, pretty civil first round. I thought it was a good first round.
I thought any team who traded up got absolutely reamed in their trade. The Falcons-Rams trade, I don't understand like the logic behind that trade. You're trading, a first round next year, a second round, and I think another second round or third round for a 26th pick. I just didn't see the value in that, so it was super interesting to me. And then the Browns trade, I think the Browns won that trade.
Yeah.
Personally, I think they reamed the Jags, and they get the Jags number 1 pick next year, and I don't see the Jags being out of the top 10 in the first first round. Yeah, no.
I could see them going like 7 and 10, 8 and 9 next season, but
I do agree, though. I think the Jags fully have a lot of faith.
Like, that was a lot of ignorance to say, I am going to trade this pick thinking that I'm going to be above, 15 in the first round, because that's where you find value in it. And now every Browns fan is going to say, I want the Jags to lose.
And there's a chance. I'm not saying the Jags are going to be world beaters next year, but you look at the offense, and if you're going to play Travis Hunter on that side of the ball, of course, that's still a mystery, but you give Trevor Lawrence, both him and Brian Thomas, who had a fantastic rookie season. It looks like Tank Bigsby is going to be the lead back. Travis Etienne, man, he did not do well for me in fantasy last year. That was my fault. But Tank Bigsby I think can emerge to be a decent NFL running back, and I think there's a chance that the Jags could be decent, but I'm with you, Hayes. I'm not sure they're going to make a significant jump for that first-round pick to be sort of a steal in there.
Well, and like this year's the year where they either go with Trevor Lawrence or they're going to give up on him, and it's just, I guess they want to see that from Travis Hunter, and they want to see if, he can connect with him. So, honestly, that was very interesting to me, and I think the Browns actually made a great move, getting Mason Graham at 4, helping Myles Garrett out, so that he doesn't have to deal with that double team all the time. And then, trading now going into the second round, they'll probably get Shedeur, most likely.
Well, and I like what you mentioned about a steal the first round. Was there a big steal of the first round that came to your guys' mind?
Absolutely. In my mind, it's Malachi Starks out of Georgia. I think Malachi Starks, people say he had a down year this past year because he came off his sophomore year, consensus All-American, had 3 interceptions this past year, just 1. But he still had his career high in tackles for Georgia. He led a Georgia secondary that was one of the best in the country. I think Malachi Starks as a player, as this guy in the secondary, has the most range of anybody in this draft. They put him ahead of Will Johnson, who didn't get picked, Jahdae Barron from Texas. I'm very impressed with Malachi Starks, and it's a dream for him. He said it last night, gets to learn alongside Kyle Hamilton. I mean, what more can you ask for from Malachi Starks in that situation going to Baltimore?
I don't think T-Mac was necessarily a steal, but I think that was a great draft for the Panthers. It put them in the right place where they need to be with developing Bryce Young in their offense. And I love that pick. I love seeing T-Mac go to North Carolina. I thought that was a great pick by them. Super strategic for going into, Bryce Young's third season.
And listen, Hayes, I don't know if you saw, but Laura Rutledge asked him last night, hey, do you like Tet or T-Mac? He's like, nah. Tet's disrespectful to my mother. She's like, the full name is Tetarella. He's like, I'll go with T-Mac instead. So good on you. Good on you.
I also really like that pick. We did our mock draft last week. None of us had Tetarella McMillan in the top 10, but he was, honestly, I think he's a better wide receiver than Travis Hunter. And so I think him going at number 8, obviously wide receiver can be a game changer. We've seen Justin Jefferson, Jamar Chase do that for both of their squads. And you got Bryce Young throwing the ball to him. I mean, Bryce Young had a little bit of a career resurgence at the latter half of last year. I'm really excited for the Panthers. But is there anyone who did not go in the first round, other than Shedeur Sanders? We all know Shedeur Sanders. It was a little bit surprising he didn't go in the first round. Was there any big surprises?
Well, you just took my pick. I was going to say Shedeur Sanders. And I understand that, the events that have circulated the last couple of days and people talking about his leadership issues, his character issues, I'm not just shocked that he fell out of the first round, but as an on-field talent, I'm very surprised. And I understand that people are saying, oh, Shedeur Sanders, not mobile in the pocket. He gets sacked too often. But you got to look at his situation. He came to Colorado with Deion and Travis Hunter to a team that was, one win the season prior? Yeah. And they had to build that from the ground. He didn't necessarily have great pieces alongside him. The offensive line was weak. His weapons outside of Travis Hunter, nothing crazy. You give Shedeur Sanders an NFL offensive line with NFL protection, NFL weapons, there's a chance that Shedeur Sanders can blossom into a decent quarterback. I'm not saying right away, but I think he's talented. He's physically gifted. He can be a good player. I was a little surprised talent-wise the Saints didn't take him at 9, honestly.
I think my question, though, is do you genuinely think, is it ego or is it confidence? And those are two very different things.
Absolutely.
And I think some teams have seen the confidence and some teams have seen the ego. And I think, in my opinion, the Raiders really saw the ego and we're just like, we're done.
I would agree. I think the ego definitely has outpaced the confidence a little bit. There's an ego, then there's a winner's ego, like confidence.
Exactly.
Like if you feel like, hey, I'm the best on the field, because I internally believe that, but I'm not going to flaunt that to anybody else, that's totally valid. I think that's a very good way to approach the game, approach any aspect of life. But when you let it bleed over to, hey, verbally and physically, like I'm better than you, like you're not nearly as good as me, that's when things get a little bit worse. And I do think that bled, and that's why he fell.
Yeah.
Well, this time last year, MJ, we had a little bit of a discussion who we thought were going to be second-round sleepers. You chose Ladd McConkey. I chose Keon Coleman. Pretty good picks. Ladd McConkey, obviously over 1,000 yards. I want to go to you first, MJ. Who is your sleeper pick of the second round?
Drum roll, please.
Chose the red tie this morning because I'm going to roll with the Ohio State back and former Ole Miss back, Quinshon Judkins. I love Quinshon Judkins. A 6 foot, 218 frame, really impressive runner. He's strong. He has great vision. Of course, he kind of got overshadowed in some ways with Trevion Henderson, who I think is also a fantastic back. But I really and truly believe Quinshon Judkins, I don't want to say he's going to be the best back in this draft because there's still things he needs to improve, and you can watch the tape here. He's a powerful runner here against Texas. I mean, he's an every down back, I think, is what makes him special. I think Trevion Henderson, in some aspects, is a third down explosive back. Here you get the visions, the patience, and the strength. That's just a grown man run. That's really impressive from Judkins. I mentioned 6 foot, 218. He wears those pants all the way up above his knees. And as a route runner, too, this is what makes NFL backs so special, is the ability to be a pass catcher in the passing game. You can see him just leak out. He just finds open space. And that's going to make him super valuable. This is the only thing that hinders me a little bit. Judkins has the elusiveness, but his speed, not quite there. Ran a 4.48 40 at the combine. That can be improved, but that should be a touchdown. Gets chased down by Leonard Moore. I think that's where Judkins can improve, but I do think Quinshon Judkins, don't want to say he's going to be the best running back in this class. I think he's going to be maybe the second, maybe the best. I think he's
But
really
also
high
when you
up
talk about a power back, it's not necessarily speed at that point.
Absolutely. I do think, though, that Judkins, I don't want to,
He's going to need to be in the right offense.
It might be a bad comparison. I do think he resembles a lot of what Jahmyr Gibbs brings in Detroit. Jahmyr Gibbs, don't get me wrong, a lot more speed and elusiveness, but they play and run very similarly.
Well, I'm going to stay with the Buckeyes, and I think we're having a Buckeye trend. They were the national champions, obviously. Give me, and I'm going to look at this piece of paper to make sure I get the pronunciation correct, JT Tuimoloau.
Got it. I think you nailed it.
I think I got it. Yeah. So he had 12 and a half sacks this season for the national championships. 6.5 of those came in the CFP. He also had 10 tackles for losses across the tournament. You talk about impact in the biggest moments. That's where he shined. That's where the defensive lineman shined. He was first team All Big Ten 3 seasons in a row. I think that he's being projected around pick 40. I think he can be one of the best defensive linemen in this class, though.
Well, is there an echo in here? Because I'm about to round it out and go with a Buckeye. On defense as well, Jack Sawyer. I see so much potential in Jack Sawyer. He's not where Aiden Hutchinson was, but I see the potential. He doesn't get off the line of scrimmage as fast, but he's just got that grit. He performed in times when Ohio State needed him in that national championship. He got that strip sack versus Texas to bring home, that win and get them to the national championship. I see Jack Sawyer being an asset in the NFL. He's great with, running heavy teams, getting off the line in that way. So honestly, I think Jack Sawyer is a steal of the draft. He's going to go end of second, third. So.
And one thing about, go ahead.
I was just going to say, Michigan had so many first-round picks. Like, how embarrassing for Wolverines fans that they had that kind of season, and yet they had that much talent. I'm just going to say that Ohio State fans, they are happy right now because their best players, they're not really getting drafted in the first round. We already mentioned Jack Sawyer, Judkins.
Will Johnson fell.
Travion Henderson, too. Tuimoloau. I got it a little bit better this time. Their best players are falling to the second round. And so Michigan fans are happy in that. But, Ohio State won the national championship. And their players, I think, are going to outperform their draft projection. And I think all three of us agree. We all chose 3 different Ohio State Buckeyes. But are there any overrated players that still remain on the draft board? I saw that smirk, MJ.
Absolutely. So I just went with a running back in Quinshon Judkins for a guy that could be a second-round sleeper. Cam Scadaboo out of Arizona State. Unfortunately, I just don't see it in the NFL. He ran a 4.65 40. She's not going to cut it. I think Cam Scadaboo, you watch that game against Texas in the Peach Bowl, just displays an unreal amount of heart, and I loved watching him run. I just don't think you can do that at the NFL level. Maybe you get picked up by a squad, and maybe you can make a name for yourself some way, shape, and form. I just don't see it.
I mean, mine's Shedeur Sanders, and I think for obvious reasons, MJ. I think at this point, someone's seeing something in him that's not right. There's the ego. I just don't think he's going to work as well in this NFL offense.
But you don't think he's worth a second-round pick? Because at this point, we're talking about overrated.
We were actually talking about this last night, and I do think, the Browns have made a lot of terrible moves, personnel-wise. They signed Deshaun Watson to a full contract, had to pay him in full. So I think, drafting Shedeur might be the best thing that they could do right now because who else do they have?
It's also, I think drafting a quarterback, especially when it gets later, it's not that risky.
You have nothing to lose.
Because if you draft a quarterback, you don't have to pay Shedeur Sanders or Jalen Milroe or Tyler Shook however much money.
Jalen Milroe mentioned.
I'm just mentioning quarterback names
but
that were
I'm
circling in the first round.
not surprised that Shedeur's still on the board.
What you could do is you draft this guy. He doesn't prosper. Go draft another guy next year, the year after. It doesn't hurt.
Yeah, in round 6.
You don't have to pay these guys $1 bajillion like you used to. You earn that kind of
It's
money.
also like when you're building a defense like the Browns are trying to build right now around Myles Garrett, it's like you're not expecting your offense to produce amazing things. It's like you just need your offense to keep up.
And I know that this is besides the point. Jackson Dart, former USC guy, I know you mentioned it earlier. I think that's a perfect situation.
He's going to get to learn alongside Russell Wilson for a year or two. I really think that's going to benefit him so much. And he fits in that system. His persona fits in New York. I'm really excited about that.
Anakin Skywalker getting drafted the day that Revenge of the Sith comes back out to theaters. Make sure you tune into that. But we talked WrestleMania last week, but this week we're going to the world of racing. Let's toss it over to Jack Hallinan and Dylan Luden for more.
Thanks, Thomas. We are 5 races into the 2025 Formula One season. And to break down everything that's happened so far, Dylan and I are going to trade some prompts back and forth about what surprised us.
Yeah, so my first prompt for you, Jack. Obviously you need to talk about McLaren because they have a wide lead at the top of the Constructors' Championship, but it's not Lando Norris at the top. It's Oscar Piastri. He's leading the World Drivers' Championship right now, the second-year driver out of Australia, the first Aussie to lead in the points since Mark Webber in 2010. It's been a while since the Aussie's been at the top, but how surprised are you, 1 to 10, that Oscar Piastri is at the top and not Lando Norris?
Well, you know I ride with the papaya. And I will tell you, Dylan, I'm not that surprised. I mean,
Okay.
Piastri has a lot of pedigree. And honestly, this is a good problem for McLaren to have. I mean, to have two drivers who you think are capable of maybe winning a world championship at some point. Last season, you thought that guy was Lando Norris. Now that Piastri has won 3 out of 5 races to start the season, you have to throw the full force of your weight behind him as a driver. And maybe this is McLaren's equivalent of like a Rosberg and Hamilton situation, and Lando Norris just ends up being the Rosberg to Piastri's Hamilton, which is, Piastri's not going to win 7 world titles, but just as a point of comparison.
Yeah, I mean, hopefully for McLaren, that relationship between, Piastri and Norris does not sour like it did with Rosberg and Hamilton, the former best friends. But Piastri off to a flying start. You wonder how much of a lead he would have had, too. If he didn't spin out in the first race, he finished 9th, he still got points. But
At his home race in Australia
Exactly,
as well.
Imagine. And I know, too, youngest driver to lead at this point. The others, Verstappen, Hamilton, Kimi Räikkönen, Fernando Alonso, Sebastian Vettel, and Juan Manuel Fangio, and they all have World Drivers' Championships. So it seems like it's in the cards for Piastri.
He's keeping good company. One of the guys on that list, Max Verstappen, of course, of Red Bull. A little bit of turmoil to start the season at Red Bull. Liam Lawson is replaced by Yuki Tsunoda after 2 races. Verstappen has only won 1 race so far this season, coming off of, 3 World Championships in 4 years or something. So how shocked are you at how the season has gone so far for Red Bull? And do you think they can turn things around and get Verstappen back into contention?
I think as a team-wise, I'm going to say my shock value is at a 7. And my shock value for Liam Lawson getting replaced is much lower. I think that's at a 4. I just think I'm very surprised that they did it so early on. 2 races is not enough time to figure out what they need to work on with him and this car and with Verstappen as well. But was that the right move originally? No, it should have been Tsunoda, and now you're seeing why they both are doing much better in different cars. But, I mean, Verstappen's going to drive the car no matter what to be competitive. He's already won a race, obviously. The car's not where it was maybe a year or 2 ago. And it just seems like I don't think they're going to be in contention for the Constructors' Championship. Verstappen, though, he will be in contention for the Drivers' Championship because that's who he is. He's going to drive the car to its fullest potential no matter what.
Well, and of course he started pole this last weekend in Saudi Arabia and could have come away with a race win. Maybe had some strategy been different, right?
Yeah, and of course he had that 5-second time penalty that really cost him at the end. But also, too, going back to, we talked about a little bit about Hamilton, but how surprised are you that Mercedes is currently 2nd in the Constructors' Championship? They finished 4th last year. Of course, Hamilton left after that season. You're losing one of the best drivers of all time, but they've somehow moved on from him really well.
Yeah, I'd say I'm pretty surprised at this. Maybe 8 out of 10, let's say.
Okay.
Because I think with Hamilton going to Ferrari and with Red Bull, you would assume continuing to have some level of dominance. It seemed like Mercedes was going to be 4th in the pecking order there.
Yeah.
But George Russell's a really solid driver. They clearly have something in Andrea Kimi Antonelli, maybe a future World Championship contender himself. I mean, he was born in 2006.
That's crazy. I
That makes me feel so old.
can't even imagine that. He doesn't even have his real driver's license either, and he's driving an F1 car around.
It's ridiculous. And, they've both kind of steadily been in and around the podium. Antonelli doesn't quite have his first podium finish yet, but his qualifying results have been improving every week. And I think it's only a matter of time until Antonelli gets a 3rd place and Mercedes keeps trucking along.
Well, the Mercedes boss, Toto Wolff, he's just an excellent talent evaluator. And, of course, bringing Antonelli in, I'm just shocked at how well he's doing right now. He's ahead of Hamilton by 1 place. Russell's ahead of Leclerc by 1 place. So they're doing really well. I don't know if that's going to be the same result at the end of the year. I think Ferrari's notoriously slow starters. Wearing the jacket right now, I know. But they usually thrive at the end of the year. So I think they're going to be better. The car will be better at the end of the year.
Well, on that topic, Lewis Hamilton obviously has not won a race racing for Ferrari yet. Had a sprint race win, which is not nothing, but have you been surprised that it's taken Hamilton a little bit of time to adapt and maybe Ferrari's car isn't quite where it needs to be for Hamilton to get to the heights that we have seen him reach.
Yeah, I'm honestly shocked that he hasn't had a podium yet. I'm not shocked that he hasn't won. I feel like, obviously coming into a new car in Ferrari, it will take some time for him to at least, get to the top. But mind you, it was a while, too, since he last won a race with Mercedes before he finally won last year. So he had that little bit of gap between his last race when he was battling Verstappen to last year. So I wasn't expecting him to win a race really off the bat with Ferrari, but I was maybe expecting one podium here and there.
Maybe after the mid-season break, it'll be a new lease on life for Hamilton.
We'll see.
And we'll see something happen.
But Ferrari, of course, notoriously slow starters, like we mentioned, and they'll hopefully come back at the end of the year. But we're going to take a quick break. When we come back, we're going to talk about the NHL playoffs and USC Club Hockey. All this when we come back here on the Water Cooler.
Welcome back to the Water Cooler. I'm now joined alongside Kyle Frankel and Stefano Fedorich. The first round of the NHL playoffs are about 2 to 3 games the way through. Guys, who has established themselves as favorites so far for the Stanley Cup final?
Well, I think you could look at the Stars Avalanche series as 2 favorites for the Stanley Cup. Those are 2 teams that could legitimately win the Cup. Reminds me a lot of the Golden Knights Stars from last year in the first round. And I think the Avs, I'll give my guarantee that the Avs win the next game tomorrow night.
Oh,
guarantee.
Wow. I thought you were going to say,
guarantee
they're going to win the Stanley Cup.
Really? Kyle.
Guarantee they're going to win tomorrow.
No, but the Stars are a great team. The Stars are a great team. But the Stars' two wins of the series, both coming in overtime. I think it's been a little bit of magic for the Stars. They're still missing Miro Heiskanen. He might be back tomorrow, which could be huge. I think besides Cale Makari's most dynamic defenseman in the NHL. But they don't have Jason Robertson, who was on a tear to end the last year. And I think with the Avs, it's just kind of a vibe. Gabriel Landeskog coming back. He hasn't played a game in guess how many days, Steph, was the last time he played an NHL game before
15.
Last game? 1,032.
I was
1,032. Had chronic issues, hasn't played in years, and coming back now, I think is sort of a huge morale boost for this team, and I think it's going to power them through the Stars.
I mean, if we're talking dominant, though, you got to talk about the Toronto Maple Leafs. I know there's a little bit of a curse. Canadian team hasn't won the Stanley Cup since, I think, 1993.
Woo! America.
One more. Hey, shout out America.
Shout out America. Hell yeah.
Sebastian hasn't been back since that conversation.
That's true.
But anyway.
Wow. Anyway. I didn't know he was Canadian.
Yeah, me neither. But back to the Maple Leafs and the Battle of Ontario. The Maple Leafs, before the playoffs, in their previous 19 games, they were 16-3. Austin Matthews has been a tear. He's always, the likely suspect to be on the mark for the Maple Leafs. 21 points in that stretch.
And an American.
And from Arizona.
Yeah.
From Arizona. He started off the playoffs hot, 5 points in 3 games. They're out on the Senators, up 3-0. All the games have been close, but if you're looking for a team to, maybe break that Canadian curse, I'm looking at the Maple Leafs in Toronto.
I'm going with the hometown team, the Los Angeles Kings. I look at their path. They're already up 2 games over Edmonton. They've scored 12 goals across the first 2 games. They're facing off against 2 of the best players in the NHL in Leon Draisaitl and Connor McDavid. Obviously, Stuart Skinner, horrible goaltender, but that's the Edmonton curse.
That's rude.
And I know, but it's true.
I feel like
it ain't rude. It ain't rude if it's true. But I look at their path. Currently, Minnesota, a wild card team, is up 2-1 over the Vegas Golden Knights. I think the wild card teams in the Western Conference are very good. St. Louis Blues also in their conversation.
That's surprising.
But so I do think the Wild are a good team. But the fact that they're already up over the Vegas Golden Knights, I really like the Kings' path, probably to the conference finals.
Thomas, can I throw? It's baffling to me that you just spoke about the Kings for 2 minutes and we didn't mention the Los Angeles Community Koreatown Senior Harmonica Troupe. These grannies are what's going to win the cup for the Kings because the Kings in Game 1 brought these grannies out for the national anthem on harmonicas, only acoustics, no lyrics, and just magic in the building. The Kings had lost in the first round to the Oilers the last 3 years in heartbreaking fashion, and that Game 1, they're up 4-0. The Oilers come back and tie it. That's a game the Kings lose 10 out of 10 times in the last 3 years. And what was different this time? It was the Koreatown Community Center, Koreatown Community Senior Center Harmonica Troupe. And they brought them back for game 2, and if they're not on the road tonight, there's a problem. There's a problem if they're not on the road tonight.
Well, okay. Rapid fire, guys. Who is your early pick for Stanley Cup champs?
For the Panthers, traded for my favorite player of all time, Brad Marchand, and they got Marchand, Tkachuk, Sam Bennett. That's a trio of rats, the rattiest team in the NHL, and they're going to go back-to-back.
Yeah, I really can't follow that, but I'll go with the Maple Leafs all the way. Yeah, might as well.
Okay. Well, we talked pro hockey, but let's get a little bit closer to home. USC does not have a Division I hockey team, but the Trojans do have a club hockey team. Our water cooler team has the story.
Hey, fellas. Also, if we win, I'm gonna do my very best to get everybody into our.
Shut up. Just shut the up.
Shut the up.
Just turn back.
Yes.
All right, boys. We're going family on me. All right, boys. Family on me. 1, 2, 3. Family.
Man, I want to go to
My name is Heath Chansey, and I am the goalie for the USC ice hockey team. Whenever I tell people, hey, I play ice hockey for USC, I guess the common response is, hey, wait, you have a hockey team here? And the answer is yes. We've had a hockey team for the past 100 years. Firstly, the Bruins. Crosstown Cup is our rivalry series against UCLA. This past year, we hosted them in the Honda Center, home of the Anaheim Ducks. We're tough. We're a really tough team. It's far, like even among the players, Anaheim is a huge commitment. If you think about our practice a week and two games, we're driving about 15 hours, and that's not even thinking about traveling. You get a bunch of just young guys with just raging hormones, I guess. ACHA D2 hockey, it might not matter at the end of the day. All roads will lead to beer league. I don't think anybody is, playing in this league to be competitive and move on to a higher level of hockey. So what you're getting is kids who are, living out their hockey dream here. We've been one of the most decorated, hockey teams early on in, college hockey history. Our more modern era has also been fantastic as well. We are the most winning team in the Pac-8 conference. We played UC Berkeley. They were on a 25-0 heater, and we took them to overtime 2-2. Most scared they've ever been. Actually, put 2 of their kids in the hospital.
Yes, sir!
It's UC Berkeley. They're a bunch of nerds, right? The physicality, the competitiveness. And we're not stopping. We're gonna continue to fight on.
We're going to go back to the draft for our next topic. It's time for the great debate. Let's get it rolling. NFL general managers risk their jobs if they make a bad draft pick. So it begs the question, should general managers draft the best available player, or should they draft to team needs?
It's always team needs, especially in the NFL, especially with teams that are drafting in the top 15 specifically. You're looking at teams that objectively, we're awful, we're bad. They have as many needs to fill as possible. It's never failed the team either. For example, the prime example is the Packers. For the past 35 years, they've been set at the hardest position to fill on the football field. They went from Favre to Rodgers to Love. And every single time, like when Rodgers was picked, there was scrutiny. When Love was picked, there was anarchy. Everyone was in the streets. And look how well it's worked out for them. I think you overthink it if you're trying to fill for team need. You're trying to figure out who best fits in your roster now. But when you're drafting, you're not really drafting a player just for today, for next season. You're drafting a player for the next 4, 5, 10 years. So you really need to think who is going to be the best product that will eventually turn into the best player for my team. So you always got to go team needs, I think, undisputed.
I agree. I don't think you always have to go team needs. I think when it's a quarterback, you go team needs. And I'm not saying that like you force it and you get like a GM who's maybe on the hot seat and he just forces a pick because he's like, oh, let me try to buy myself another year. But when you're a team and you need that quarterback, if you know it's your guy and you think it's your guy, there's no reason that you should be waiting. And I look at a guy last year like Bo Nix, a guy who was projected bottom of the first round, even maybe second round, and you get a team like the Broncos at pick 11 who knows he's their guy. Sean Payton loves him, and he gets him. And look what they did this year.
Made the playoffs.
I was a Bo hater. I'm a Bo leaver. Turn me into a Bo lever. Like
that was clever.
That is how you turn a team around, is by getting that guy under center. But other than that, I think you want to go with best player when it's some of these other positions that might not be quite as important. You don't want to force the guy like, oh, we need a wide receiver right now. Let's jump on this guy who might be going 20 picks later. No, get the defensive line.
In that scenario, then you trade down, get more draft capital, and take the guy you want. You have to do team needs. Let's.
Are we all going team needs?
Yeah.
Wait, I messed up.
You said best available.
Best available.
Other than quarterback, I think. Because you look at the Atlanta Falcons a couple years ago.
Perfect example, actually.
Perfect example. Bijan Robinson, why did they take him?
He ran for almost 1,500 yards last year. 14 touchdowns. He had an amazing year.
No. But the difference between him and Tyler Algier, not that different.
Actually, it was like 700 yards.
No.
It was 500 yards.
Yeah, who cares?
Who cares?
No,
I kind of agree with Thomas.
Because the Falcons have a huge holes on the defensive line. They could have had Jalen Carter one pick later. Bijan Robinson, objectively a better player than Tyler Algier. The difference between him and Algier, much smaller.
Algier is a non-factor in the passing game.
But the reason they didn't pick Jalen Carter is because Arthur Smith cares about character.
Well, we do care about character, first of all.
I don't know. You have to go team needs.
It's always best available. When has it ever served someone wrong? Bijan Robinson is a completely different back. Bijan Robinson, you can
Are the Falcons
use him in
playoff
the
contenders? Are the Falcons Super
Bowl
Bowl
contenders? They went from 4 wins to 8 wins.
You just said it's always best available. I thought you said it was always team need.
I can't remember
what I'm... You talked yourself into a hole.
I don't know what's happening here, but it's best available.
You don't know what you're arguing for.
Bijan Robinson, they literally improved their team, and it helps open up their offense in so many ways.
Sure, they improved their team, but they could have improved their team in a lot better scenario if they have drafted Jalen Carter.
Oh, okay, it's not like they would have done so much better if they drafted a D tackle at 6.
I think they would have done better. Like
they would have made the playoffs with Jalen Carter.
Yeah,
Jalen Carter.
They were
like 8-10.
They might have gotten in the playoffs.
Okay, well,
or 8-9,
we got to move on. We got to get into it with final memos.
Oh, duck out, why don't?
You ducked out. You changed your mind
because I forgot what we were talking about.
Okay, well, it's draft day. It's draft fits. We're gonna take a look at a very specific draft fit from a top 10 pick in final memos. It's Ashton Genty. He went to the Raiders at number 6. He wore Crocs.
Love that.
He wore Crocs for his draft day fit. Let's take a look at that.
I mean, they're fashionable.
Is this the move, guys?
I think it is. Sometimes you got to prioritize that comfortability over, looking. And they looked. It worked.
Yeah. I think sometimes you gotta be comfortable, and you gotta be comfortable, but you gotta have that style too. And you think about the bedazzled Crocs and a draft day fit that I always think about as a bad draft day fit, but kind of legendary, Kevin Knox.
I was going to bring him up.
The Fortnite jacket?
It kind of worked.
Kind of awesome.
It was kind of great, actually.
Kind of awesome at the time. Didn't work out because he sucked.
Well, that is all the time we have today. For our entire cast and crew, I'm Thomas Johnson. We will see you next time for our hour-long finale on The Water Cooler.